We're talking about hometown heroes today, and that's appropriate. We have many of them, our teachers, police officers. But today we're focusing on the firefighters. And I hope that all of you understand how important this is. I was just talking to Keigh. We see fires everywhere, but we don't recognize that many of our firemen have to volunteer to go to remote places in Texas and fight a fire that has nothing to do with them, but they understand the challenges they're facing for that community. Guys, that's hero. That's hero on a massive scale. And our leader is one of the coordinators of that effort, so we should give him a hand. I'll make this quick. He's been involved with the city government for local government for 20 years. Of course, he's our current fire chief. He was also a professor, has been a professor at Angelina College and the College of the Mainland. He got his BA in management from St. Edward's University in Austin. He's a licensed paramedic and all the things that you would think he needs to be. He's married to a beautiful woman named Ashley Kiplinger. Did I get that right? Kiplinger, okay. And he has his daughter he calls Peanut. Of course, she likes to be called Catherine, but only when she's in trouble does she get the luxury of being called Catherine. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the leader of our hometown hero, the fireman, Fire Chief Keigh.
Thank you, Pierre. I'm going to have to make this shorter. I'm the shortest one here today. I'm really glad to be here and want to say thank you to the Chamber for giving me an opportunity to speak. Those of you that know me know that I'll talk to anybody who will stand still long enough to hear what I have to say. I'd like to start off by letting you know a little bit about me. My name's Keigh. I had the luxury of knowing what I was going to be when I grew up when I was 4 years old. That may not have been the case with many of you, but I've never changed. When I was 4, I announced to my family at an event that I was going to be a firefighter and a paramedic. And now I'm 43, and not a single day from 4 to 43 did I think of doing anything else for a living. That's a pretty amazing thing. When I was asked to talk about hometown heroes and about the nonprofit organizations that serve our community with amazing spirit and amazing vitality, I had to think about something I'd never thought of in my entire life, and that was heroism. I was stamped to be a firefighter. I was made to be a firefighter. I was never supposed to be anything else. I always knew what I was going to do, and I never slowed down and thought about what a hero looked like. You know, in college, I remember seeing Norman Schwarzkopf on TV as he fought Desert Storm, and he was leading the troops, and I thought, that guy's a hero. And it was easy to think of that, but I never really thought about what it means to be a hero. So it was a cathartic experience. So I began thinking about the heroes of my life. From 1972 to 1978. 72 to 78, the greatest firefighters ever were on TV. And I grew up watching Johnny and Roy. I never missed an episode. Now, I come from a family of engineers and scientists and school teachers. We didn't even have a neighbor that was a firefighter. Nobody went to our church that was a firefighter. I don't know why I'm a firefighter, but Johnny and Roy certainly had something to do with that. And in fact, there's an entire generation of emergency responders out there that owe, in part, their career to these guys that showed up on the TV, on the little bitty black and white TV. They don't look nearly as good on the 51-inch plasma. I've tried. So as I think about the heroes of my life, I think about that. And as I went through the process a few weeks ago, I decided, well, I guess I'll start with the dictionary. And I don't have a dictionary anymore. I have the internets. And on those internets, I don't know if you're familiar with them, you can go to dictionary.com. It's this amazing thing. I don't know if it's real, but it's on there. And so I thought, well, let's look at what the dictionary says about heroes. And the dictionary starts off with legendary warrior. Now that's a pretty good idea. That's a pretty good starting place for a hero. Audie Murphy was the most dedicated soldier in World War II, did some amazing things, has ties to the great state of Texas. What an amazing story. If you don't know Audie Murphy, you need to. But he was a legendary warrior. That's a hero. The next thing that the dictionary talks about is People who show great courage. Well, the miracle on the Hudson wasn't that long ago. That's pretty easy to see. That works pretty well. As we look at people who show great courage, I love this photograph. Of all the photographs of 9/11, this one means the most to me. These firefighters are going toward the World Trade Center as it collapsed. They're going toward the end of the world. They're not walking away from the end of the world. They're not leaving the building. They're not going in before something bad happens. Right in the middle of when the world is coming to an end, these heroes have the courage to walk toward it. The dictionary, if you read on a little further, tells us that heroes are also people that are admired for achievements and noble qualities. Who better to represent that than George Washington? He wasn't a perfect person, but he certainly had some awfully noble qualities. And he certainly had achievements that nobody could compare with. As I went through the process of trying to figure out what a hero looked like, I realized that heroism is more than rushing into burning buildings or being a valiant warrior. Heroism is about having those noble qualities. Now I've got to go down the path of what's a noble quality. Well, those noble qualities are things that have to do with ethical and moral character, our behavior, how we live our lives. A long time ago, a guy named Cicero was a great philosopher and statesman in Rome. In fact, he died in about 43 BC. And in those days, people had different ideas about gods and about different things, but I think Cicero had a good idea about moral character. Cicero had a good idea about noble qualities. He said, men resemble gods in nothing so much as in doing good to their fellow creatures. What is more noble than doing good to our fellow creatures? So we come up and think about those noble qualities, those ethical and moral characters, and the way that we live our lives. The way that we live our lives. Dr. Podgman is a professor at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He teaches ethics. And he taught there for many, many, many years, and he has some really amazing things to say. But in his lifelong study of ethics, Dr. Podgman boiled this down in a way I could understand it. I call his book Ethics for Dummies, because I could actually understand these concepts that were so difficult. But Dr. Podgman tells us what noble character and noble qualities are. He says that ethics is that which strives to promote the flourishing of rational beings, the amelioration of suffering, and the resolution of conflicts of interest. Those are the things that we should do to live ethical, moral, noble lives. As you look around the room, you're going to see tables filled with people representing organizations who, because of how they live their lives, are exhibiting ethical, moral, and noble character. Heroes. In fact, what is more noble and heroic than the services that those represented here today provide? Advocacy for those who are unable to speak for themselves. Shelter for those who have none. Safety from abuse and neglect. Aid for victims. Support for research. Assistance for those who are afflicted. Hope for those who need it. A hand up for those who are reaching. Beauty and the arts for all of us. And encouragement to help make us better people. In the fire and emergency services world, we have things that we call frequent flyers. There are people that use a disproportionate amount of services. People that call 911 a lot. About 20 some odd years ago, I called frequent flyers, and we issued them little cards, and they get points, and they can go to... Not really. But we have a number of those people, and if you work in a nonprofit group, or you have those people that use a disproportionate amount of services that often need the things that you have to offer. I'd like to tell a story about one of those frequent flyers, and we're going to call him Bill today, although that is not his real name. Bill called 911 hundreds of times. Going back to the late 90s, I remember responding to calls for Bill for chest pain and for seizures, mosquito bites, ingrown toenails, leg cramps. I can go on and on. Bill called hundreds of times. The police, the ambulance, the fire trucks. In fact, Bill was likely at many of your agencies, dozens and dozens of times. A couple of years ago, Bill died, and I went to the funeral. And at the funeral, I saw several people representing organizations that are here today at Bill's funeral. That day, I got back in the car and I thought, you know, Bill really used a lot of points from a lot of people over the years. They all came to his funeral. But that afternoon, I was at the police station and I found myself talking to Sergeant Greg Sal. And as I talked to Greg about going to the funeral for Bill and the fact that he had died, he told me a story. About a few years ago, when he was called to the front lobby to see Bill, and knowing that Bill needed something like every other time, he walked up to the lobby. But instead of knowing something, that day Bill reached into his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill and asked Greg to put it toward a benevolence, a community effort to raise money to help somebody else. You see, on that day, my frequent flyer became a hero. The organizations represented here today encourage people to flourish. They ameliorate suffering. They resolve conflicts each and every day. And I admire each of you for your noble qualities. And now I have a whole new list of heroes. Thanks.